everybody. Really glad to see you here. Glad to see a good crowd. I know that even if we weren't giving seminar credit, you all would be here just because you want the information, right?
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Well, I'm glad you're here for whatever reason. I think you're going to be blessed and informed, and glad you came. So welcome to all of you. With us today is Mr. Ralph Murphy. Ralph and I worked together for many years at ASCAP up to the other end of Music Row. Ralph has had over 5 decades of success. What does that say? Over 5 decades. That says, he's a weary man. A lot of success as a platinum record producer, award-winning publisher, hit songwriter. Ralph has been a mentor to songwriters who are now in the Hall of Fame. So not only can he do it and understand it, but he also knows how to effectively communicate that to others. And he's done that recently. He's got a lot of articles on the ASCAP website and on his own site called Murphy's Laws of Songwriting. After many years of being ruthlessly badgered to put them in a book, he has finally done that. Here's the book. There are plenty of them at the bookstore. So if you listen to this and you want to dig a little deeper, please, I recommend you go on down there. Ralph has given us a really good price on it. But I want to thank you for your applause already. But one more time, let's give it up for Mr. Ralph. So glad you're here, my Lord.
I'm happy to be anywhere.
Good. Hey, man. So you know Sir Paul McCartney, correct? I saw a picture on your desk once of you and Sir Paul hanging out. Name some other big whiz-bang celebrities that you know, sir.
Mostly writers. One of the great things about songwriters is that you can have hits and be invisible. That's always been my joy. I can have a #1 record and no one knows who I am. I can produce a platinum act and no one knows who I am. That's really nice. I have friends that have become, like, say, Garth Brooks. When I first met him, he took my place at Bluebird and got his record deal. But watching in the evolution where he became, quote-unquote, Garth, or whomever becomes, quote-unquote, them, they lose their identity as human beings and they become the public persona. Like my friend George Martin, who produced all the Beatles stuff, he's virtually invisible, which is really cool. See, I love that invisibility. It gives you freedom. I mean, I've got a 20-year-old truck, I have no car payments. Yes. This is an old freebie from many years ago. Free T-shirt. I did pay for the jeans. I bought 1 pair of shoes once a year, whether I need to or not, and it's great because I am invisible. But what I am within my own peer group, within my own community, I'm a vital part of that community, and that's the people I value. The ones with all the flash and the glitz and the whatever, that's nice, but the substance. It defers to the creator of the work. I remember when I was a kid, I sang my mom was a cleaning lady, but she was also a keyboard player in a pub. And she taught me a song when I was 5 years of age. There was a song that her grandfather taught to her from a poem by William Percy French called Mountains of Mourne. And he'd come over from Ireland, he was an Irish immigrant. And she taught me the song. About halfway through, everyone started singing along with me. At the end, it was like, yes, applause. And I realized that applause was not for me. The applause was for the song. And I wanted to be the person that wrote that song. I wanted to hear it being badly played by the Holiday Inn. I wanted it coming out of car windows. I wanted it played by the living strings at the grocery store badly. I wanted to hear that song. I wanted to hear people sing it badly at karaoke. That was my whole mantra. That was my whole raison d'etre. That was everything. I never really made it out of high school simply because at 11 I was very tall and goofy. And I started playing when I was about 9. And by 11 I was tall enough to play in the band. By 14 I was playing in clubs. At 16 I joined the union. 17 I went to LA because the one thing I wanted to do was learn how to communicate. See, I thought it was all about me. Me. It's not about you. It's about the listener. Your job is not to give them you. Your job is to give them themselves as you see them. That's your job. And when you choose that job as a creator of works, your job is to give them as you see them. All right? Now, the three things you feel you have a mandate to do when you discover you have this wonderful gift of creation, the three things are whine, preach, and vent. You know the last three things I want to hear come out of my speaker is you whining, preaching, or venting. Get over it. I don't care. Unless you do it with humor, irony, and detail. Invite me in, create an expectation, fulfill it. I was just telling Dan, I've been hired by the Norwegian government to go in 3 times a year and make their writers, and these are mainly track writers, but I don't just teach country. I've had hits in all genres. My early stuff in the 60s was pop out of England, Billy Fury, Casuals, The Henry Fair, James Royal. Then the late 60s, early 70s, April Wine, Mensch McCann, Sugar, Studebaker, Hawk, Lust, Annihilator, you know, with Kansas City compilation albums, Peru, Cherry, Vanilla, Staten Island Band. I accidentally had a country hit in the middle of all that, came down here and fell in love with the town. Physically, I moved late 70s, started a company. And what I realized, the same structure that I had learned back then was exactly the same structure that was being used in country songs. The same stuff I used in rock and pop and dance was exactly the same. All that changes from genre to genre is vocabulary and technology. Everything else is the same. When I'm teaching in Norway, you know I'm teaching 4th and 3rd forms. Verse, lift, chorus, bridge, chorus out. Same as Lady Gaga, Beyonce, all of them. Katy Perry, same as 4th form. As a matter of fact, all the pop charts, there were 14 #1 pop records last year. They were only written virtually in 3 forms. There was only, and one was an inadvertent form. The other 2 were verse, chorus, bridge, chorus out. The other ones were verse, lift, chorus, bridge, chorus out. Whereas in country, which is a broader tapestry if you as creative people, there were 5 of the 6 basic structures used. So, for me as a writer, what do I enjoy from a tapestry point of view? The only thing is it's a different marketing, it's a different way of looking at it, which would take me about 2 days to go over. Anyway, Dan, you had some questions?
No, thank you. It brings me to the a question that I think, well, just a basic question, I know the answer, but so why did you write this book? There are a zillion songwriting books out there in the world, you know, why is this book written? What's different about this book than all the other zillions of songwriting books out there?
The difference was my son teaches at Columbia, and he came to me about 5 or 6 years ago and said, "Dad, you're really old." Thanks, pal. He said, "No, but if you drop dead, all the information dies with you." I said, "Write the book." I said, "I don't want to write the book." I said, "What a pain in the butt. I'm a songwriter. You know, a morning on a song, I've finished 3 songs so far in the last 3 days. Because then I can get them in, get them done, I create an expectation, fulfill it, beginning, middle, and end, set them up, make the singer look good. I can do all that just in a heartbeat. Writing a book is a deal. It's a big deal. And the problem with writing this book is because every creator that I deal with is monumentally dysfunctional. Not just dysfunctional, monumentally. They're so ADD, you can't stretch them beyond 2 hours. Matter of fact, 7 to 12 seconds is on average for most of my people. So that book started as a tome. It started really big. I then squeezed it, and squeezed it, and squeezed it, and squeezed it. And I knew when I had achieved my goal, I was in London, and I gave Paul Williams, Paul wrote, "We've only just begun," and blah, blah, a whole bunch of hits, his Grammys, whatever. Gave it to him in London. He got on the plane, and he emailed me when he got off. He said, "Brilliant." I said, "Great." He said, "I started it when I got on the plane. I finished it by the end of the meal service, which means it was about 2 hours. I had achieved my goal." Because I know my babies. I understand. I know me. I'm monumentally dysfunctional. The basic profile for I'm up to my butt in orphans, murders, suicides. I'm a washing. And everyone thinks, oh, you don't know about me. Oh, I can hide. No, the basic profile for a great writer, by the way, is physically, sexually, emotionally abused, from a broken home, with an inability to communicate, a desperate, desperate, desperate desire to be loved, marginally dyslexic, and slightly ADD.
There's your songwriting majors, right there.
No, it's great. Pick one or all, that's you. That is the good news. The bad news is nobody cares. That's the fact. But what you've been given at birth is a gift called the gift of perception. The ability to look at someone and know them really well. The way they stand, the way they move, the way they sit, the way they dress, their fingernails, their hair, their shoes, everything about them gives them away. So once you've got that gift of perception, it's forged by the crap you've been through into a laser beam so you can really look at people. Unfortunately, the big hurdle you've got to overcome is yourselves. You want to keep dropping your whiny, preachy, dysfunctional selves into the songs. I'm so miserable, I'm so unhappy, I'm so lonely, I don't care, I think I'm going to jump off the bridge, I can't get over it, I hate my parents, blah, 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 blah. That's great. Get over it. The same gift of perception that you have to create, you channel it into something with a beginning, a middle, and an end that invites the listener in. I was going to Oslo about a year and a half ago, and I was dealing with second-year students. They have a thing called grammar there. And just as an exercise, because they speak English very well, the tracks are great, everything's great. And I thought, now how do I explain create an expectation and fulfill it in 60 seconds or less? So I took the first 3 or 4 lines of every #1 record, and there were 29 a year before last in country, and 14 #1 pop. I wrote the first 4 or 5 lines down, and then I wrote the title under it. It was one sentence. It led me directly to the title. So using that as an illustration, suddenly create an expectation, fulfill it. When you go to a movie, all right, a lot of you go to movies. When you sit in that movie and you see that film, all films are written the same. Introduction to characters, subplot, all that information is provided to you the same. They're all different. They have different plots, they have different backgrounds, they have different actors, different music. All that stuff is all different. But they're all written the same. They fulfill that expectation. All songs basically are written in 6 basic shapes with variations on it. And there are loads of variations. I could do about another hour and a half on that. I was just with Dan Wilson, who wrote the Adele single up in Toronto. I was talking to him about the new double choruses that are happening in pop, which is a trickle down which will come about in country 2 years from now. What you're hearing on the charts right now was written 2 years ago. So, and also about the increase in the beats per minute. Back in the 80s, 70s and the 80s in New York, I had a dance label. Well, the heart rate is the one you dance to, the elevated heart rate. It was 135 back then because everyone was doing so much cocaine. It was running at 135. All of a sudden, it's back down. And Lady Gaga was working at 119 to 121. It's now gone to 125. Now it's up to 128. I want to know why. You know why? Because I want to give that consumer exactly what they want. When you stand in an elevator, you expect to hear music at 60 beats per minute because that will calm you down as those doors close. The music, time of day factor, gender, the way you receive information is so important. And you, as a provider of those works, need to know more than everyone else around you because they're not real bright out there. I got to tell you, Dave, they really are not. You have to know more about that consumer than everyone else, than the publisher, the producer, the label, all of them. Because you have to provide, these songs are not songs. Songs are scripts to make that singer look good to women. Men actually don't buy records. As a matter of fact, we were talking about men buying records. Rock is almost a dead genre, singles-wise, because males 11 to 23, males are more, will download faster for free than women will. Women will actually physically buy the record. Men will just download it for free. So it's killing rock. So where they're making their money is merch, touring, and physical sales on the road. That's where they're making the money, and of course, gig fees. I do hours on that too, but I won't. Question?
Well, you're illustrating the point to me, which is this book. What makes this book different and why we have the publishing students read it is the data. It seems as though, or it's obvious, that you look at this craft not only from a passionate standpoint and the feeling standpoint, but you really are very analytical about what makes hits work. Would that be fair to say? And that this book then is really almost the science of the art form, right? You distill, research a lot of data, boil it down, and really are looking at data and the science of what makes hit songs. Why?
My whole role is to demystify the process. Number one, for me, you're part of the trickle down, okay? John Siegenthaler had me on his program, Word on Words. And at the end of the show, he said, "So, Ralph, it's really brilliant, wonderful, blah, blah." I said, "What are you planning on for your next book?" I said, "There will never be a next book." Never. What I may do is update the information, because a lot of people in 2 years' time say, "Well, you know, that was so 2 years ago." The very fact that the structure has not changed in 40 years, I mean, duh. I was taught that structure, those structures in there, I was taught 40 years ago by people who learned it 40 years before. The way the human animal receives information. The movies, the old black and white movies, are exactly the same structure, introduction, character, subplot, whatever, as the current movies. All they're doing is going to animation, doing other things, but the way you are moved through a movie is exactly the same as the way you move me through a song. And there are certain things that you're going to do as creative human beings that will prevent you from communicating. And this book is really about demystifying the process. It's really about passing it on, which I hope you do. When you read this book and you experience it and you use it as part of what you're doing, and someone comes and plays you a song, no, your pronouns are wrong. Oh, you had to change rhyme scheme versus the chorus. You have to do this. So you're knowledgeable. You're not just a victim. Because what you get is some chump saying, "Oh, I just wrote this song. I just sat down. Oh, it was so wonderful." The writing isn't the key to having hits. Rewriting is the key to having hits. You blurt this out, and then you walk away from it, and you say, "Did I communicate?" The writer's assumption is huge. You assume I know what you're talking about. I don't have a clue what you're talking about. She left him. Who's she? Who's he? Where'd she go? And remember, you're talking to women in most cases, unless you're in the band, and I'm not going to be writing for the band anyway, because that's a whole different animal. Always remember, women hear differently than men speak, all right? Women also are guys. I'm actually talking to guys. Girls, you don't hear this. But two women go and have lunch, right? And one sits down and says, "He left me." The other one goes, "Is he working out? Has he lost weight? He bought a new car? He moved yet? Has he had a haircut?" They want all the things that goes with, "He left me." Two men go and have lunch, and one sits down and says, "Wow, she left me." The other one says, "Man, that's drag, have a beer." End of conversation. So you are communicating to women. So detail is king. Also, you're creating someone that never existed, a place that never was, doing something that never happened, and making me believe it in 60 seconds. Come on, get with it. And if you don't choose to do that, that's great. It's called thinning out the herd. You know what I love? When someone says, "Oh, I don't want to sell out." Great. Lovely. There'll be fewer of you to see. But the ones that choose to make that quantum leap, and that huge leap of faith, and to go for it, hey, I'm there. Matter of fact, every songwriter in this town, I will guarantee you, if you went to Rivers Rutherford, if you went to Don Schlitz, Don's my buddy. I've known him since before he had the Gambler. And he's just as volunteering. All of us, if someone cares enough to really get the skinny, to really understand, believe me, there are people who will say, no, don't do that. That's why I learned. I moved to England. I heard the Beatles in 1863. No, I heard the Beatles in '63, and I just come back from California, and I thought, Liverpool, that's where it's at, man. This is really great. So I lied about my age, got a job as a ship's cook on an ocean-going dredge. I got enough money for a one-way ticket to Liverpool. Well, anyway, on the boat on the way over, we ended up working from where we were helping to turn the propellers up to first class, and we got a bunch of business cards from people. So anyway, I ended up in Liverpool, and we were playing a club called Birdcage, and Jerry the Pacemakers came in and said, "Ooh, wow, you're cool, all that." They came up to us and said, "You guys are really good. What are you doing in Liverpool?" I said, man, this is where it's at. He said, there's nothing here. They're all in London. There's old labels and the publishing companies and whatever. So by going there, when I got there, I was embraced. Tony Hatch was my producer. He wrote Downtown, Don't Sleep in the Subway, produced The Searchers, Clark, blah, blah, blah. Tommy Connor, right, I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. I used to have breakfast with Jimi Hendrix. Jimmy would hang out. There was just a whole mob, there's a whole gang of us. And it was because we cared enough, because we made that trip to go there, they accommodated us. And it was so embracing. And it's the same way it is here in Nashville. It's not quite like that in LA or New York anymore, which is kind of a drag. When I moved to New York in '69, it was a wide open society, and it was really, really cool. People would bring you in, you'd go hang in the studios, you could listen to what was going on. This is one of the last bastions of where people will exchange information, where they will give you that information. And there is no such thing as a stupid question, all right? Just a writer without information. It's very, very important that you ask. There's no dumb questions. You should hear some of my dumb questions.
Ralph, so that information, so far you've touched on different song forms, verse, chorus, or verse, chorus, starting with the chorus first, the different song forms that are in here. You've talked about writing for women, right? You've talked about beats per minute, and you talked about pronouns. Drill down into that a little bit and give us some of the other the research, the stuff you've happened upon through your research that really make a difference when you're writing a song.
Well, there are trigger words. I hate to say this, but there are trigger words. The human animal is an interesting animal, the way you approach them, okay? We call it playing the you card. When you hear the pronoun you when you're driving down the road, you listen around speakers, you lean in because you were invited into that song, okay? If you go to a concert and there's some really good-looking guy up there, he goes, I love her, you don't give a damn. But when he said, I love you, you're in. I mean, I was teaching a class in England a while back, several years ago. And I said, I don't know why, but women always use, he's so great, he's so wonderful, he did this and he did that, and I love him. And men will always do, I love her, she's the greatest thing in my life. That's just a knee-jerk reaction. That's the way you first spelled it out. And I don't know why his hand came up. I said, okay, yes, sir, first of all, what qualifies you to know what I'm talking about? And he said, well, I'm a Harley Street psychiatrist. Which is great. Harley Street psychiatrist wants to be a songwriter. Duh. Anyway, so I said, okay, explain to me why, everyone gets the wrong thing. He said, well, because we're so bad at relationships, that for a woman, he is easier to deal with than you. You's too close, you can't handle you. For men, she is so much easier to deal with. But you, whoa, can't handle you. Unfortunately, a song is not a song. A song is a linear, lyrical conversation between two people, you and I. He, she, it, they, and them are things that come between you, us, I, and we. Unless the principal character in that song is a loser or over 30. That's simple. If they're a loser over 30, first of all, why would I spend $1,100,000 on a loser? I'm such a loser. Oh, gee, I can't wait to piss away. To dump $1 million. I'm actually very polite right now. I'm not normally this cool.
Baby. You're talking about from the record company standpoint. Why am I going to put $1 million into what?
Yeah. Matter of fact, if you hear a record out where the principal character is a loser, know that the writer wrote it and the A&R people were too weak to stop him from releasing it. Why would you allow someone to look like a loser? A song is not a song. A song is a script to make you look good to women at worst time of day possible.
What do you mean by that?
I'm glad you know. Actually, working in sort of country really sort of forged this perception of what I'm doing, okay? And it used to be this way, you heard everything in cars. Basically, all the hit stuff. If you talk to a record company executive, when do you want your product played? They go, drive time, 6:30, 8:30 in the morning. okay? Now, 7 in the morning, you don't tune in at 7 in the morning for new music. You don't wake up out of bed, jump out of bed and say, I want to find some new music at 7 in the morning. No. And if you're a woman, you're probably taking care of a whole bunch of problems. You're driving to a job you hate, you're dropping your kids at daycare, you're in a car that's about to break down the rain in the fast lane. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. The 4 things that you want as a listener are local news, local weather, local traffic, because you got to get there, and familiar song. You want a song that you know. You want just something that resonates with you, that you remember from before, that turned you on, that felt good a couple of years ago, whatever. You don't want a new song. So when that new song comes at you, you, as a listener, are predisposed to hate it. Because it's coming between you and local news, local weather, local traffic, and a familiar song. You will allow it, and this is very generous in country, you will allow 60 seconds for it to talk to you, about you, or a situation you heavily identify with. If it does not do that, you will change stations looking for local news, local weather, local traffic, and a familiar song. It's that simple. That's why you do it. Now, the other side, the dark side of that equation is, when you make that listener lean over and push that button, change that station, do whatever, go to Sirius, they will hate that song forever because it made them, in the middle of all that distraction and the car about to run over them and somebody jogging out in front of them, the traffic lights going, you made them perform an act that came between them and local news, local weather, local traffic, and a familiar song. So you've not only shot yourself in the foot, you've made them hate that song. So you've got to think about that listener who is predisposed to hate you. You're not writing for a cozy bunch of people at 3 in the afternoon, 11 in the morning, 10 o'clock at night. My dog can write for 10 o'clock at night. I go to these showcases and people say, oh, I don't know why that's recorded. I can tell you why it's not recorded, because it doesn't function as a piece of work. If your friends and family are your worst enemies, your worst enemies. Playing clubs, I used to play the clubs in Kings Road, and there was Donovan, there was Sean Phillips, there were a whole bunch of us playing these clubs. And at the end of every show, midnight, they'd come up and say, I just love your music. They don't mean that. What they mean is, wow, you got a great personality. Number 2, geez, you sang the brains out. Number 3, I love this club. It's so cool here. Number 4, oh, the wine list is great. The bar snacks are cool. You know how many beers they got here? That's just so cool. Last but not least, wow, I like that music.
It's like, thanks for not getting in the way.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're saying.
See, where the money is, this is an orphan. All this goes away, your personality, your songs, the things, the vibe, the room, the wine, the da. It's all about the song. This is a lonesome song. It has to invite me in and talk to me when I'm predisposed to hate it. That's your job. Writing songs is easy. My neighbor writes songs. Everybody, well, I wrote songs. I remember one time flying back from California, I just had a second #1 country within that year. And this person was a doctor, and they were flying in, and some stuff. And so they're sitting next to me and telling me all about their research and their stuff, and what. That's great, that's great. So as we're just getting ready to land, they said, oh, and what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a songwriter. He said, oh, me too. I said, oh, that's funny, because I'm a surgeon too. I said, you're not a surgeon, you don't work. I said, you're not a writer. What have you ever done? Well, geez, yeah, you're a writer, but you're not a writer. You know, there's a whole world, quantum leap. See, most of us write because we're monumentally dysfunctional. We write because of catharsis, getting stuff out of our system. And that's great, that's very, very valid. You know, so it feels so lonely and miserable and blah, 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 and you play with people, oh, I'm lonely too. That's great. Get over it, okay? Get stuff out of your system, that's wonderful. But if you choose to make it an avocation, great. If you want it as a vocation, then come on board. But it's a whole different world. Matter of fact, there are several things, if you're a producer, You need to know basically what song structures are, what the audience wants, how to develop it. If you're in a band, you need to know, because the singles that you're going to have as a band are quote-unquote calling cards. People say to me like, well, Joni Mitchell just writes all these wonderful left-to-center songs and wonderful things. I go, great. But when you hear her advertised for a show, you'll hear, oh, she's coming to Bridgestone Arena, big yellow taxi, took away my old man, and then oh, she's coming in, blah, 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 and she's going to both sides now, blah, blah, blah. Those are all perfectly written songs. They're the calling cards that will get you, as a listener, to that audience, down to that thing and become part of the audience. Then she'll do the 15, 20-minute jazz improvisations, and you'll go, oh, wow. But she better play Big Yellow Taxi, and she better play both sides now, because that's the expectation that you have when you're going there. So again, like I talk to a lot of country males, I'm working with different labels. And yes, you've got to talk to women, do whatever, but somewhere on your CD or as part of your project, you have to be singing to males, because that girl is going to bring her significant other to your show. You better have a song that speaks to males as well to balance your audience out. It's how you think about it, how you consider your audience, because that's what it's all about. It's about them. Remember every song that you fell in love with when you were growing up, as you're coming up down the pipe, it talked to you about you. You never cared what the writer felt. It just spoke to you, about you, or a situation you never identified. Well, your job, once you choose to be that creative force, is to give the listener themselves as you see it. And I'll keep saying that forever.
Well, I was going to repeat it. I'm glad you did. So you're saying the songwriter's job is to give them themselves, right? Reflect on it.
Or a situation they heavily identify.
Okay, and to do that, at drive time, you want to use personal pronouns, right? And the singer himself has to be a positive, likable character, right? If there's a loser, that's the he or them or somebody else in the song.
Except in urban, in a lot of cases, they are not that likable. There's some pretty heavy lifting. You look Black and Yellow, you look at, there's just so many, a lot of the rap artists. Actually, great story. I was down in New Orleans about a year and a half ago, and there were a bunch of rappers, and it was great. I was looking at structure and craft on it, because I enjoy the form, the structure. Actually, strange enough, you know what invites the listener into a song 100% of the time is melody. What keeps you there is lyric, okay? Well, when rap first started emerging, many years ago, I looked at that and went, how cool, what a great new art form, that's so neat, that's pretty cool. But then I realized that there was no melody. So how is the listener going to be invited in? It's mainly performance stuff. So then they started using a lot of samples, which created a comfort zone, so people were invited into the song. I thought, well, they're still going to go a little further than that. And then they started using choruses from songs where Rihanna and Eminem. So Rihanna, I love the way you lie, blah, 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 and then he would rap. So the choruses invite you in, and then the rap is, okay? Because the human animal is a weird animal. You can't hear over melody. Given your preference, you always defer to melody. So where you tell your story, you don't change your chord till you change your thought. I love you, and if we make it, maybe you would be the one you heard everything I'm saying. Whereas if you're dealing with Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, people like that, it's all big melody, one-syllable words, consonants for titles. Mutt Lange writes brilliantly in that. I had a cut on Shania's first album, and I noticed the difference from there to the second album, where Mutt took over. It was like a different human being with a different sensibility, which invited the listener in very quickly. Open vowel sounds so you can sing, way, hey, yeah, I owe you, and consonant. That don't impress me much, dead-ended with the consonants. Anyway, where was I? What's that babbling about it?
You're doing it beautifully, my lord. We're just talking about what do we want, what do you want, what should we give the listener at 7 in the morning? We talked about the pronouns. Now you've mentioned open, for a good singer, a lot of open vowels so they can sing, good consonant cutoffs in the end, tempo. The bad guy is always somebody else, it's not the artist, right?
The interesting thing about tempo, by the way, for country, because you're dealing with a person in a tin can inching towards work, the average beat, I get 2/3 of them was 70 to 90 beats per minute, which was slightly elevated above 60 beats per minute. So it's a totally different animal. Whereas if you look at pop, Black and Yellow was 87, the Adele stuff, I think it was 111 and 86 or something. All the rest of them were 110 to 135 beats per minute, so they're obviously designed for dance. Again, when you look at a pop, it's a different animal because it's video driven. That's really what it's looking at. There's an interesting fact, by the way, that if you have a video without women in it doing dancing or whatever, women don't like to watch it. Women like to watch other women, which is a strange thing. I've done the research on it. So, those of you in MTV, when you see all these female dancers dancing around, that's why. Women like to watch women. Men's nice, but check them out.
That's like counterintuitive. You'd think it'd be
Yeah.
quite the opposite. Well, okay, let's talk about stuff like the hook. You know, how long does a writer have before they lose in a new song? How long should they take to get to the hook, to get to the chorus? What can they do to keep the listener from losing attention and pushing that skip button?
Okay. One of the things, one of the best writers, current pop writers out there right now is Lady Gaga. I don't care what you think of her or whatever, but she is a brilliant writer. She worked for a friend of mine up in New York for a while, just as a writer. What she does, she works in what they call fourth form, it's a verse, lift, chorus, bridge, chorus out. She changes rhyme scheme section to section as she leads you through that song, because that's what alerts the listener that something different's coming their way. One of the big problems I've got in Ireland, which some of you are going over to, is at 10 o'clock at night, they keep the same rhyme scheme versus chorus. And by the third chorus, everyone, it's like church music. The same rhyme scheme, verse to chorus. So by the third chorus, everyone can anticipate where the rhyme is going to be falling and start singing along. So they'll be playing these songs for you. Well, you know, if your feather guards broke out that, geez, it'd be lovely, you know. And I'll go, well, he wouldn't record it because it doesn't function for radio. It's, oh, well, they loved it in the pub last night. You know, you should have heard them singing it, you know. It's, oh, it's lovely. And I go, well, no, it won't work because it won't function for what they need it to work for. It's that simple. We live in the music business, okay? All music is played to make money. No one, but no one, if you were out anywhere, plays music gratuitously, okay? And people say, well, you know, restaurants and bars and restaurants and theaters and things and elevators and whatever. Wrong. If you hear jazz in a restaurant, you will pay a third more for food. Jazz makes you feel more expansive. You'll have a cappuccino, not a coffee. You'll have a dessert. You'll have a salad. You'll pay an extra $5 for that bottle of wine. It makes you want to spend money. Strangely enough, classical, you'll spend a third more for food, but you'll have 4 or fewer drinks and leave earlier. Okay? Elevator music. People say, oh, elevator music. Come on. Well, in the late 20s in Chicago, they ran out of space. Woo-hoo! They ran out of space in Chicago. Who knew? So they had to build buildings above 6 stories. In order to have buildings above 6 stories, you have to have an elevator. Well, the problem with elevators was that traditionally elevators would crash and kill everyone once a year. Because only a dummy would get on an elevator. So a guy named Otis came along and developed a thing called the self-locking elevator. Great. Cables would break, clicks would go in, everyone was safe. That was fine, right? Problem was, because historically they would kill everyone once a year, no one would get on an elevator. So he went away and he thought about it. When he came, he put a little speaker up there, a little speaker up there, played this very calming music. So as the doors closed, everyone stayed on board, it went up and down, Mr. Otis got rich. Walmart has its own radio station. Played the number of beats per minute to walk you through that store so you didn't go too fast. Talked to you about situations that resonated with you based on age group and number of children. And bought goods and services according to that. Every single thing in your life, musically, is designed to sell you something. Don't ever think music is for free. Not to the user, anyway. The user, to the creator, yeah, we're so used to getting shafted, it's ridiculous. But, I'm also a past president of the National Songwriters Association. I lived in England, I worked with the PRS for writers' rights, simply because we get almost nothing and everybody else makes money. It's quite incredible. But, hey, That's a whole other issue another day.
So,
Oh, just one,
Yeah. No,
one other
it's your-
thing, by the
it's
way,
your deal.
on the pop records, 100% of them were you, which means you're inviting that listener in.
you said 100% of them, what do you mean, the number
Oh,
one?
number ones, number one
Of
pop
what year?
records, 14, last year.
Okay,
Uh,
14 number one records, all of them were you?
Yeah, I
Okay.
put my hand on a blade for you, I take it to me for you, all of them, they're all you, oh friends, da-da-dee-da, all of them are you inviting the listener in to participate in that song. In country, because again, you're looking at certain things where you try to defer it if there's a character you're not really great, like say the gambler, we'll take Don Schlitz's, know when to hold him, know when to fold him, it's not the singer saying that, it's the old guy on the train. Things like, there's so many songs like that. Say like Trace Atkins, you're gonna miss this. Instead of him being preachy, it's the mom says it in the first verse, the dad in the second, and the plumber in the bridge. So you kind of figure out a way to make the singer look good. That's your job, that's my job. As a standalone writer, outside the equation, I'm not part of the publishing company, I'm not the producer, I'm not the brother-in-law to the artist, or whatever. When they come to me, they say, we gotta have a hit. And my job is to know everything that's necessary, all the ingredients in that song to make that listener go, wow, he's so cool, or she's so cool. Again, when you hear a song where the artist is a loser, know that they probably wrote it.
Do you have any advice in the book or now about how long an intro should be, or how long you can wait to get to the chorus or get to the hook?
Depends, it's genre driven. In most cases, if you're dealing with pop, it's zero start. You
What do you
start,
mean by that?
zero start is ma, right from the beginning. There's another thing, which is again a consequence of the human animal. In the digital world, when you dead end a song, and I would say probably 90% of songs in pop are dead end, they stop, okay? Well, when you as a listener hear that song dead end, you feel cheated. You want to hear it again. So you'll probably make a loop and hear it 4, 5, 6 times because you feel cheated. What we used to do back in the day when I was making quote-unquote albums with artists, we would fade them, which would wean the listener off that song and make them move to the next song. That's why you fade a song, to get them on to the next song. Well, now in the days where there are no more CD sales, there's nothing going on, you want that listener to demand to go back and hear it again and again and again. So by dead ending, you create that expectation. They want to hear it, they feel cheap. So yeah, zero start. I think, but in country, we're still dealing, last year it was 15 seconds.
What was the intro?
Intro, on average.
Instrumental intro? 15
Yeah.
seconds?
Again, because they still have an on-air personality who still talks over those, still needs them. Yeah.
Okay. Before we move on to current trends and stuff like that, let's open it up to you guys. What you've heard so far, do you have any questions you want to drill down into something that Ralph has touched on, or something you'd like to ask? John.
I'm curious about your take on the Beatles and George Martin and kind of their songwriting method. It seems like they kind of broke the rules. I mean, I think they even, John Lennon sang the song "I'm a Loser." I think that's even the hook. But they use tape manipulation, music concrete, various meter changes. Lyrically, just sometimes you.
40-minute shows a night, because I've done 4 40-minute shows a night. What it does is a great training ground, because by singing the same songs, you know where to change rhyme scheme, you know where the hit's supposed to, or where the hook is supposed to occur. You know when they expect an instrumental or a bridge or middle eight. You'll get a sense of that whole deal. So by playing hits over and over, matter of fact, my friend Roger Greenaway was touring with the Beatles. They were second on the bill to Helen Shapiro, who was a big star back then. It was Helen Shapiro, the Beatles, and then the Kestrels, and Roger was part of the Kestrels. And he was sitting in the dressing room when Brian Epstein came in and he took Paul outside and had a word with him. And Paul came back into the dressing room just ashen. And he said, the guy said, hey guys, we're screwed. He said, what happened? He said, they just told us we got to write the next album. We can't write. They were that scared. But by being forced in that position, given the training, that they had like doing over and over and over, 10,000 hours. How many are fans of Malcolm Gladwell, The Outliers, What the Dog Saw? I mean, that's just, those are amazing books. I read at least a book a week because I'm on the road a lot, and I need to ingest a lot of information because I'm curious. I'm a lifer. This is the only thing I've ever done. I'm not bright enough to do anything else, but yeah, and that is just, it's a wonderful thing to watch. I didn't meet George till '67 because he produced Michelle with Roger Cook and Roger Greenaway. There were two big records on it, The Overlanders in UK and Roger and Roger, David and Jonathan here. And that's why I met George. But yeah.
So do you feel like that they broke a lot of rules and changed a lot of rules, or are they using a lot of the forms and format that they heard from the Memphis records and the Delta Blues?
Well, initially, that's all they instructed. Taste of Honey, all that stuff, yeah. But if you look at yesterday, perfect AABA, perfect. But then they got bored. They got very rich, and they got very powerful. So when you're very rich and you're very powerful, you can do anything you want. But if you notice, the hits started going sideways. And if you look at, what they're doing now, it's not really mainstream. The hungry survive. Okay? If you really are hungry to be heard, and you communicate, and you write those songs that will communicate, you'll get heard. When you're kind of flatulent and kicking back, oh yeah, I'll just write what I want to write. Matter of fact, this is fascinating because I groom writers, and I'll train them. At a certain point in time, they'll have the #1 record. We'll go out and have lunch and sit down, and they'll say, well, now I've had that hit. I can do what I want to do. That's bye-bye. I won't see them probably, they'll maybe have another hit. I won't see them probably for 3 to 4 years, and then they'll come in and say, well, yeah, geez, I don't know, I lost my deal, no one will call me back.
Yeah.
I'll say, well, play me some stuff. And those songs are all about them. I had one girl, she had her first hit, and she got divorced. And this whole album was about her divorce. And it was all like, I'm going, I care? Who am I going to cut that with? It doesn't work because there's no humor, no irony, no detail. But you see, again, that cathartic process, you do it because you got to get stuff out of your system. And that's important. I write them, but what I'll do is I'll put them off to one side, and I'll look at them. I'll maybe play with the Bluebird. Because people love them at the Bluebird. They come, oh, that song you wrote about, chopping your own foot off. Oh, I love that song. Who recorded that? Oh, nobody. And they go, do you have a demo? I go, no. Why would I spend $500 to demo something that's never going to be a hit? I don't look stupid. I'm in the music business, and I love it. I love it. I love it because all my friends are so crazy, and I understand it. I'm crazy too, but I also use them as a sounding board. What I do for most writers when they play me their stuff, again, like Norway, I was over there in February. I did a couple of college things. I then went into this thing, Waterfall Production, which is a division of Universal. They had 4 studios, 4 track writers, 2 top line writers per studio.
Explain what you mean. What's top line writer?
Oh, top line writers, they do the melody.
Melody and the
Melody and lyric. The track people do the tracks.
The beats.
The beats, yeah, beats. Well, the beats are, tracks are an extension of the beats. There's the beats, and then they put the track on the electronica or whatever.
Okay.
And basically, what I would do, they'd be anguishing. I'd go 20 minutes to spend that, and I'd walk in there like that. And I'd go, well, what's the deal? Well, we're trying to say, and if the dreams and Okemo, the override, and the horizons, blah, blah, blah. I'd go, well, what are you really trying to say? Well, I love you. That's what you're going to say. A song is a linear lyrical conversation between 2 people. Don't get too complicated. Okay? Very, very simple. But it's hard to be simple. Simple is so hard. It's so easy to be complex. I want to give the deeper meaning. The other one I really love is I like to leave it to the listener's imagination. The listener has no imagination, gang. Oh, so you want me to write your song for you? Duh. Yeah, I can hardly wait to sign on for that duty. You can't even write it so I can understand it? Well, great, keep it. I don't care. No one sent for you. You know what I mean? You turned up. So if you're going to turn up, do the gig. Because that's what's required of you. And again, if you don't want to do that, it's fine. Yeah.
Before I take another question, the sign-in sheet, where is it? Here. Who has everybody kind of signed in? Who has not signed in at this point? Okay, so it really needs to go. You know, we don't have scanners tonight, so make sure you get your ID out. You put your name and your card. No. There's no skin off your nose. You just write down your name. We're the ones that have to do all the work on that. So make sure that sign watch for the sign sheet. It's going to be coming around. Okay, quiet down, please. Let's take another question, please.
Actually, one thing I really want to apologize for being so fragmented tonight because I'm trying to get high spots and things. Normally it's sequential. I sort of set you up and lead you through this information a lot better. Just trying to bounce. I'm kind of being a ping pong ball. To apologize.
Yeah, so I was just kind of wondering, an artist that came to my mind who really does kind of deal with her own issues, and I'm curious about how she makes that work for herself, is Adele. And how she kind of chose to write about herself, but is it that it's applicable to a lot of people because it's about love? Is that kind of why?
Sure. You talk to them, about them, or a situation they heavily identify. Rolling in the Deep was wonderful. Also, the other feature, I noticed a lot in pop, which again, is always a leakage. It's double chorus. You know, you think you've hit a chorus and it suddenly goes to another one. And I was talking to Dan about it briefly in Toronto. I'm going to see him in LA in April. I'd like to know more about that. Even if you look at Firework, that's a double chorus. All choruses are getting larger in pop. I don't know why. But yeah, Adele is a common thing. You know, we've all lived that scenario. And also, she only co-writes. So these aren't just her. She has a co-writer. And it's one of the things I love about co-writing, it keeps you honest. They go, oh, who is this person? And what are they going to do? And what? That co-writer sort of restrains you. I generally write with what I call song bullies.
Song what?
Bullies. Song bullies, like Pat Alger. I'll write like 3 verses and 3 choruses, and I'll go, I like that one line in there. Go away. I'll go, but this other line is about, so that doesn't work. Oh, but, that doesn't work either. So find people that have a discipline. Find people that really care. You know, if you want to be a concert pianist, you want someone who's going to not settle for anything less than the best. You know, why do I only study #1 records? If I go to the Olympics and I work out for 10 or 15 years, I don't go for the bronze. I don't go for the silver. I go for the gold. If someone's going to climb Everest and they settle for 10 feet below the top, oh, come on, get over it. I'm as dysfunctional as everyone else. I love #1. I hate #2 records. I've had #2 records. The last hit I had was 3 years ago with Cliff Richard in England, and it went to #2 and sat there as the X Factor. Just really annoying.
Number 2.
#2. Matter of fact, my first country hit, actually, 100 years ago, went to #2 and sat under Rose Garden. So it's just kind of a trend, you know?
L'Oreal, that one goes over there to that section. We've got one coming this way for this.
Yes.
Sorry.
After all your years of experience and a lot of co-writes, what is, because I'm just opening myself up to co-writing with people, what is your greatest point or greatest advice of essential things to do with the co-writing?
Understand the market, #1, okay? #2, when you're looking for co-writers, look sideways. I'm one of the official old guys, right? And I've had all these wonderful writers coming through the Rivers and the Craigs and the blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, oh, I really want to write with Bob and Jill. Or this is years ago. Or I really want to write with Waylon Holyfield. I go, no. What about that guy? What about this guy over here? They go, no, he's the same as me. Or she's the same as me. I really want to write with... It's like, whoa. In 10 years, they're going to be in the back of the audience while you're on stage getting awards. Be looking sideways, all the people that came to town with you. It's a parallel universe. It's not like that. You know who I'm writing with now? I've actually, in the last week, I've finished one 24-year-old, one 28. Matter of fact, the track people I was working with in Oslo, probably about 28. Most of the people I'm dealing with are in their 20s, early 20s. I start working with someone when they're in their teens, but more or less just to kick their butt. Because they know what, see, I don't have enough life left to bullshit anyone. I really don't. You know, it's like, yeah, I'd like to spend a year or two like lying to you. I don't have any time. You know, you want it, here it is. You don't want it, that's fine. It's called thinning out the herd. It's a beautiful thing. But, you know, like, it's good fun. But again, look sideways. I mean, look around. I will guarantee you there will be 3 or 4 people in this room that you will have a common bond with, that you'll have a common vision with, that creatively are evolving like you. All right? Always look sideways. It's really, really important.
You know what he means by that, Ryan?
Yeah, I understand.
People always want to co-write up, and that's understandable, but
Yeah.
forget your peers. Another question?
What?
I have 2 questions. You have heard explained the spoken poetry, and the second question is, what types or what figures of speech can you like to utilize?
Figures of speech, well, if you're looking at devices, alliteration, internal rhyme, metaphor, there's a whole bunch of things. The one thing about poetry and lyric, they are mutual exclusives. They have nothing to do with each other. Use the devices of poetry in a linear, lyrical, conversational setting. Okay? Yeah, you need to know how to write poetry, but it isn't a lyric. First of all, if I really want to impress you, you're a beautiful woman, I'd say, I love you, you love me too, I think that we can make it through. You go, what a jerk. Whereas if I said, I love you, I need you, I got to have you, then suddenly that's a lyric. Okay? One is a lyric, one's a poem. And again, that's one of my biggest problems. Like dealing with contemporary Christian people. Number one, they work, it's called a huge writer's assumption. Because, oh, he's so wonderful. We see, if I was in Pablo, who's he? We see in a church or a setting like that, youth group, you know who he is. If I'm out in the real world, who's he? I don't know, who's this he guy? So there's a lot of writing where you assume you know what you're talking about. Also, the other thing is in church music, keeping the same rhyme scheme versus chorus all the way through. A, B, A, B, or A, A, B, B rhyme scheme. And again, I had that same problem in Ireland, where I had to break them of it and understand that there's a different craft involved with each thing. And there actually is so many, I could do weeks on that, but poetry, the last poet I went to hear was Allen Ginsberg. I went to the Albert Hall and I sat up near the ceiling, and all I heard was between Allen ringing his bells and because yes, you couldn't hear it. Albert Hall is not for the spoken word, but for strings and wonderful orchestras and symphonies and stuff like that. So yeah, I've never really been a huge fan. It's like jazz, you know. I love songs. And jazz takes them and interprets them a whole different way, which is nice. There's lots of wine.
Yeah, keep it strokes. Keep it going.
Oh, well, questions.
Take another couple questions. Yes.
Do you think it's more important to find a melodic or a lyrical hook first?
What invites you into a song 100% of the time is melody. What keeps you there is lyrics. I get people say, oh, I don't know the words to that song. You play it for them, they know all the words. They don't know that they know them, but that's what retained their interest. Okay? So where you have your melody, and again, the classical composers knew that. You know, like a classical piece would start with like one moving part. Dum, da, 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 dum, 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 da, 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 and the next passage, the next one, doo, 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 doo. At the end, 5 or 6 pieces would all play together, and you hear them all, right? Wrong. You would hear one and remember the rest. Okay? That's the way the human animal processes information. You cannot hear, you cannot multitask when you hear. You hear one and remember the other. So if there's a conversation going on and I'm trying to hold I can't really hear or absorb either. The classical composers knew that. That's why they said, I'll give you one piece, one passage, then next passage, a different thing. So at the end, you knew it all. But the way the human animal processes information, that's a function of the human animal. Okay? So where you have your melody, and you have to have a melody to invite me in, then you have to have a lyric. Unless you're doing, quote unquote, writing for divas. If you're writing for divas who just want open vowel sounds, constant, I love you. I mean, I defy you to tell me a lyric on a Mariah Carey song. I really, like, what lyrics were. But again, they're fun to write, and I've written for people in Europe that just are melodic as opposed to lyrical.
Kansas, did you have a question?
Yes, just playing off that melody concept.
Sure.
I've heard that as far as internationally, as far as hip hop or other ones where they're lost in translation, does it fall back a little bit more on melody? Do we have to justify if you want to have lyrics or anything like that?
Yes. Melody's huge. That's why when we're going to Oslo, because they want quote-unquote export ready. They want to make money in the United States. So they're hauling my button there just to really start busting them lyrically, to provide humor, irony, detail. You know, have you ever felt like a paper bag in the wind or a plastic bag in the wind? Yeah, no, you're a firework. Just, there's so much detail involved in great games. And this one thing they don't quite get is detail. And sort of subtle humor. So yeah, you're right. It's a lot more melodic internationally, Sweden especially. But there are teams that work a lot. Max Martin, and now we've developed our own teams. There's a big team out of Oslo. Excuse me, that do all that. But in general, most of the lyricists are in the United States or in the UK. Actually, there's a couple of schools over in the UK that are really good curriculum. Leeds University. But what I'm doing, I've got a lot of friends who develop tracks. So what I'm doing is I'm getting them to give me tracks, I'd say 5, 7 years ago, that nothing happened with, clear all the lyrics off, and have top line people write new lyrics to them. These are written by #1 track people, just as an experiment, just to see how they respond to it, to get them used to writing and rewriting. I've got one of my guys out in LA. I started with him when he was about 19, and now he's writing for Nickelodeon and for Disney, doing a lot of stuff for them. And what he'll do is at 6 o'clock he will drop off the track. They'll call him at 7 and say, we need the second verse rewritten, we need another bridge, blah, 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 we need it at 9 in the morning. Well, I used to bust his chops, make him rewrite and bring stuff back immediately. He used to yell at me, oh man, that's so cruel. I'm going, when you get in the real world, in that genre, in that area, it's going to be a different animal. So designing, whatever you choose to do writing-wise, is really, really important to the discipline that you have to assume in that regard.
Prince, what you've heard this evening is just, as Ralph said, he skipped across these mountaintops. If it seems a little disjointed to you, there's a simple way to pull it all together, and it's pick up the book. Some stuff written in here by Hall of Fame songwriters. Ralph's done the research, written the hits, can communicate the kind of valuable information that can actually help writers succeed in this crazy business. Ralph has devoted decades to the study of song communication. This is Ralph's take on this process is very, very different. It's very analytical, but this little simple book right here can really help you if you're a publisher nurture hits out of your songwriters. If you're a writer, it'll help you look at, take all the creativity and the emotion you feel and really channel it into some good stuff. So I want to thank you, Ralph, for coming. There are a lot of